What's good, everybody? I'm Jędrek, and welcome to episode 10 of The State of Modern. So, today I want to talk to you about top 5 cards from Strixhaven that will make waves in Modern, in my opinion. There are a bunch of cards that aren't on this list that might be fringe playable. For example, there's a blue-green instant for 2 mana that either counters a non-creature spell unless their control pays 3, or fights 2 creatures. And this is a card that might see fringe playability. I think it will be better in like Pioneer or Standard or younger format in general. But even in Modern, I think it may do something. So going to the top 5 list, on a 5th place I have Fracture. Fracture is an instant for white and a black. It destroys target artifact, enchantment, and planeswalker. So I think this kind of versatile and still efficient removal spells are usually a quiet all-stars of sideboards. And I think even if this card looks pretty unassuming, I think it will be pretty good in the format. Not only control decks can play it, obviously. The first home I'm thinking about for this card is Esper, so I've been playing a bunch of Esper, but also decks like Death's Shadow can very easily just put one Goblet Shrine in their deck and sideboard discard or sideboard Vanishing Verse that we will be talking about in a bit, as you probably expect. But why I like this card precisely in Esper is that it can kill Planeswalkers against Tron while still being decent against the rest of their stuff. So I think this card is very good against Tron. It's also pretty good in control mirrors, since you can just kill a Planeswalker no questions asked, whether it's Jace, Pick the Fairy, or whatever else. And it's also an out to stuff like Blood Moon, or Choke, or what have you, I don't know, Colossus Hammer, and the whole like Hammer deck. So it's a very versatile card that covers a lot of bases, and while it's definitely not a main deck card, I think it will see a fair amount of play throughout sideboards of different decks. Number 4 on the list is Expressive Iteration. So it is a sorcery for blue and red, so 2 mana. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand, put one of them on the bottom of your library, and exile one of them. You may play the exiled card this turn. So this card is somewhat similar to Light Up the Stage, which is a mainstay of prowess decks throughout Modern and different other formats. And since it's blue-red, its obvious home is blue-red prowess. And I think this card is pretty great. My concern is that maybe prowess doesn't want this kind of effect over like Light Up the Stage. Some blue-red prowess lists play 3 Light Up the Stages instead of 4, so they are not even maxing out on that. But if this card is somehow better than Light Up the Stage, I don't think that's the case. I think Light Up the Stage is the better card in these decks, but definitely it can be a reasonable addition to prowess decks. Even if like a sideboard tool of some sort. But aside from prowess, maybe you can play some more like Delverish decks, or maybe not even Delverish, but some blue-red tempo decks that are more even on blue-red than just prowess decks, which are basically mono-red decks with a light blue splash. Maybe you can play Young Pyromancer with this card. Maybe you can play Snapcaster Mage with this card. I don't know, but I'm fairly excited about this card's potential. Maybe you can even play the Storm, even like as a sideboard option, even though Storm is kind of unlikely. But I don't know, I'm pretty excited about that one, and I guess we'll just see where it goes. So number 3 on the list is the card that I've already mentioned, which is Vanishing Verse. It's another white and black instant for 2 mana, and it exiles a monocolored permanent. So this is the card that people are pretty hyped up about, and I think this card is good. It's not as good as people are thinking for the most part. but it will still make impact on the format. So it's a fairly similar card in purpose to Fracture. It's a very versatile sideboard card that covers a lot of bases, and cards like Celestial Purge were the mainstays of control sideboards for many years, and this is basically a new and generally improved version of Celestial Purge, because while it can't hit some cards that Celestial Purge could have, like Remnant 6, like Lures of the Dream Den, and cards like this, it's still a very powerful option to have in variety of matchups, because this card, like the versatility of this card throughout matchups, is fairly unparalleled, because it's an answer to, for example, Stormwing Entity, which is always somewhat of a problem to control decks. Then it can exile Heliod, which is a card that's very tough to deal with once it lands on the battlefield. It can also answer Blood Moon. It can also answer Liliana of the Veil. It can answer Primeval Titan, which is another card that's somewhat problematic from time to time. So like, it's a bunch of minor upgrades just throughout the matchups, and I think all these little percentages will add up, and it will be a card that brings a lot of success to either control decks, or, as I've said before, with Fracture, it's a pretty good card for shadow decks probably. Just one Godless Shrine, and you can just cast it, you're all good to go. Number 2 on the list is Thrilling Discovery. It's a sorcery for white and red, so 2 mana. Once again, you gain 2 life, then you may discard 2 cards. If you do, draw 3 cards. So this is basically a functional reprint of Cathartic Reunion, more or less. It's obviously harder cost, and there's an upside of gaining 2 life. Also, we are not discarding the cards as a part of the cost. Instead, we are discarding the cost as part of the resolution. So sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. You can actually cast it off the top, and you don't. Oh no, you can't, because it says if you do. So I guess it's better if you mulligan somewhat low, and they have like Remand, this kind of effect, and you really need to be explosives. For example, I believe against decks like Storm, maybe it might be better, because there's a deck against which you want to have an explosive start, and they're playing Remand at the same time. So like, against control decks, you don't care all that much if your Reunion gets countered, if you just discard Stinkweed Imp and another Stinkweed Imp or Loam, because you'll still get to Dredging. But against decks like Storm, I believe you want to be fast, so actually resolving your card might be nice. Yeah, I think this type of Cathartic Reunion effectively dredge deck will be very strong. I've talked a lot with Sodek about it, and the thing that was pretty bad since Faithless Looting got banned is that Haggle isn't a very good enabler. It's not a card that can single-handedly explode the game most of the time. And Thrilling Discovery is a very potent, very big effect. So you can just almost always guarantee to have this type of effect on turn 2, either Reunion or this Thrilling Discovery card. And what's even better is that you can just play a lot of 1 mana sideboard cards. 1 mana sideboard interaction gets a lot better, because you are way more likely to have a powerful turn 2 proactive play, so you can spend turn 1 on casting Lightning Axis, or casting Thoughtseize, Nature's Claim, what have you, and any type of this effect. And I expect Dredge to be somewhat back, and I think we will see. Basically, we will see a bunch of Dredge now, in my opinion. So you can dust off those rest in pieces. Maybe you can just manage with 4 Chaos Guile, but I doubt it. I think there will be some rest in pieces coming on. Okay, so it brings us to the number 1 on the list, which, well, I think is pretty obvious at this point, and it is Clever Lumimancer. It's a 1 mana white creature for one white mana. It's a human wizard, 0/1, and it has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Clever Lumimancer gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And this card is just either another threat for prowess decks, and it kills pretty fast, but also it can open up some combo, like aggro combo possibilities with cards like Magus Elemental and Storm cards. Because since Mage to Craft also triggers on copying, not only on casting, sequences like turn 1 Clever Luminancer, turn 2 bunch of 1 mana / 5 mana spells into either Ground Rift or Flusterstorm will be quite often lethal, and it is basically a Niv Magus 5 through 8 for this type of deck. Obviously the cards differ, but it's definitely a very strong effect, very strong one drop, very explosive card. It's similar to Steplings. It's much better than Steplings, obviously, but similar in it that without a support, be it either fetch lands or 1 mana spells, it does nothing. But if you support it, you all know probably how dangerous Steplings can be with a fetch land. The thing is that you can only play 1 land per turn usually, and you can play a lot of spells, especially with 3 5 mana spells. So I expect Clever Luminancer to go to a variety of different aggressive decks, be it prowess, be it more all-in versions. I even saw a Naya version that looked cool, that had Lumimancer, prowess creatures from red, and also Dreadhot Arcanist with scale-ups and with Become Immense. So it was very, very bursty, very explosive aggro deck, basically. And I think for the most part, if you are playing some sort of removal decks, it will be more or less the same, because this dies to Fatal Push just like Swift Spirit did. Maybe control players will have to devote a slot or 2 more for 1 mana removal spells. I think 1 mana interaction will be very important in the coming days. So maybe you want like a Blood Shifters, maybe you want Path to Exile, something to supplement your 4 Fatal Pushes. And I think it makes Lightning Bolt kinda weaker, since it's not that hard to protect Lumimancer from Lightning Bolt, even if you are tapped out, if you have just 2 Phyrexian mana spells, which is obviously a cost, but not that much of a cost. And I think that a removal that doesn't check the toughness of the creature, it will be better than Lightning Bolt in the coming weeks. And yep, I think that's all I wanted to say today. So just to reiterate, number 5 Fracture, number 4 Expressive Iteration, number 2 Vanishing Verse, number 2 Thrilling Discovery, and number 1 Clever Lumimancer. So I am, for one, very, very interested in how this week challenges will go on. I know there's a global lag on Modo, which makes playing control decks very, very hard. And even if there was no lag, I actually have some plans for tomorrow, so I'm not gonna be playing this Saturday's challenge. I might play Sunday's challenge, and if I do, I will stream it probably. And if not, I'm just gonna start with some league play on Monday. I think that Lumimancer will significantly alter the landscape of the format, because it will basically push like these slower non-interactive decks out of the format, since it's very, very important to kill Lumimancer on turn 1. So I think decks like, for example, Elves that I liked won't be that great, because Elves seems pretty bad against Lumimancer. Tron will either have to play more Dismembers or this sort of effect, or you can just switch to Eldrazi Tron. If you are playing Green Tron, you have Chalice, which is it's not that great, because things will still trigger, and this deck will be mostly built on triggers, not the actual effects of spells, like for example Flusterstorm or Ground Review. You don't care if these spells resolve. You care about the cast and copy triggers. But for example, if you are playing E-Tron, they are playing Lumimancer, you have Dismember, and then you have Chalice on 1, and then they can't play any following threats. It will be a pretty decent strategy. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'm gonna see you either on Sunday or on Monday for more Magic. Take care, and bye bye.